From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas to Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, I sit down with Ryan Waterbury and we talk about part 2 of our agency series. And we're going to focus on agency doing ads, PPC, pay-per-click for clients. Grab a drink, sit back and relax, and enjoy the conversation between Ryan and I. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas to Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, I sit down with Ryan Waterbury and we talk about part 2 of our agency series. And we're going to focus on agency doing ads, PPC, pay-per-click for clients. Grab a drink, sit back and relax, and enjoy the conversation between Ryan and I.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. In today's podcast, I'm going to do kind of episode 2 of what I call How to Deal with Business Challenges with Ryan Waterbury. And we're going to talk about online advertising. Hey Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Oh, good. So I thought you and we've had many offline conversations about advertising and the changing landscape. And frankly, a lot of that surrounds by our friends at Facebook. I like to call them the Facebook monster. And they keep changing the rules. What's your take these days on what's going on with Facebook and that whole mess?
When I talk about social media management, I separate that from social media marketing, and I make a pretty hard point on that when I talk to clients when we're talking about doing ongoing services. Facebook has not done some good things, as we know, and just in general, and it's not just Facebook, it's our friends at Google too. There's some scrutiny over data privacy, and Facebook, Google, the other entities out there, they want as much information about you as possible so that they can fulfill their obligation to their advertisers. You and I both know that if a product is free, you are the product, and your data is being sold, or you're being advertised to constantly. So as we've gone down this realm and this road with Facebook, they make changes pretty often, and without it seems like user input. If you've ever used one of the back end tools, a few months later, it will probably change and become unusable for you, or at least hinder you enough to annoy you. So from a social media manager and marketer, I still like Facebook because it has the biggest audience. From a metric standpoint, because individuals are being more privacy aware, you have browsers like Brave, and other third-party extensions for Chrome and Safari. Safari in general already has it built in to block tracking pixels. So there are some changes being made, and I think Facebook and some of the other data mining entities out there are digging harder to maintain their profitability and revenue. So they're finding ways to keep mining the data about you while trying to maintain that privacy aware or respect, which, well, I don't think there's much there.
No, I would agree with you. And you mentioned privacy. And we know what our friends in the EU, the Economic European Economic Community are doing. There's been several lawsuits at both Facebook and Google. I just before we went to air, I've now read an article that says, and it will probably end up in my newsletter next Monday, saying, will Facebook be able to operate in the EU moving forward? It's getting that bad. We've got concerns over data mining, but I think part of the issue before we dive in ads has got to be, do these people really understand that if these entities aren't gathering their data, they're actually going to end up paying for stuff on the internet more than they are now?
I Yeah. So just from a convenience factor, um, I thought I would dump my Adobe products. Just as an example, I said I'm going to do Affinity and do the one-time payment. I don't want a SaaS solution. That's a whole nother discussion. But I said I'm doing it, and I found myself being frustrated and spending more time. And I went back and said, okay, I need this. And here I am using Adobe Creative Suite again because it works and it's convenient. And I'm paying for it. But so I think some of the products and services out there that people take for granted that they're using for free to connect with other people, and a lot of individuals, when they kick their businesses off, started a free Facebook business page. And imagine if you had to pay for that.
Yep.
That's where it's kind of coming down to that. If we can't properly show ads to the right person, then is it really worth it to advertise on the platform? And if you can't do that and people stop spending money on purchasing ad space, well, then you're going to have a monthly subscription, just like every other software as a service, to use it. And I really think you hit it on the head there, that until that really happens, I don't think people will realize what they're giving up.
No, so true. And the other problem, like we talk about Facebook business pages, and you just kind of touched on it a little bit. It's now gotten to the point where pages don't even show, frankly, in the search results unless you run ads to them. It's gotten that bad. So you're almost forced as a business to pay to play. And the other thing that's changed greatly in Facebook, it used to be, to test out Facebook ads, you could go with the formula, oh, I'm going to run $5 a day for a couple weeks, and that would be enough to test out my ad spend. And from my experience, it's been, you almost have to run, truthfully, $1,000 to $2,000 on an ad campaign to even have a clue where Facebook's going to serve your ads at this point in time. They've upped the ante in a big way.
Well, part of that has to do with the privacy. So when you have browsers like Brave and Safari, and even before that, the ad blockers, they would gather data about you. And, there used to be the jokes. I looked at a diamond ring and now I see wedding photographer photos and all these things. And I see the same product everywhere I go.
I'm living that right now. I helped my friend Leslie buy a washer in December that we bought online locally, and all I keep seeing is washing machine ads for 2 months. So there you go.
Right. And, I stay logged into those accounts on my browser. That circumvents some of that blocking because you are using their service and you are opted in. So they're still collecting data. That's a little bit of the saving grace, in that there is still wide usage of your Google account as a single sign-on, your Facebook account. So people are staying logged in. So even though, you're blocking some of the pixel tracking, other actions that you're taking on the site are collecting data and sending them back to the motherships. So by not collecting that data, you are starting to show ads to people that have absolutely no interest in your product. And now you're kind of back to some of the more traditional methods where you have to figure out which ads work and which don't, because the ad providers, Facebook and Google, don't have as much data as they used to refine on a very specific audience.
It's
In a way that's, a good thing from a privacy standpoint, but from a standpoint of an agency owner, it gets more difficult, and you have to spend more time doing research and really refining your audiences so you don't blow through that $5 a day spend. And honestly, those days are long gone. Facebook used to be the cheap alternative to Google Ads, and they're no longer that cheap alternative. Costs have increased, and because of the privacy blocking, your ads aren't as precise. So you're not impacting and hitting as many of the ideal customers as you used to.
that, and I think a combination that big brands have finding, and when I talk big brands, I'm talking people like Coca-Cola and major retail outlets and so on, have discovered that Facebook is a great way to advertise. And the minute the big brands all moved to Facebook, the cost per spend went up as well. There's no coincidence with that timing, in my opinion. Um, and the other thing that's getting hard with all this blocking is to do those retargeting ads we talked about. So it's really hard if we're running all this stuff blocking pixels to do retargeting ads at this point in time.
Yeah, Facebook used to be my highest converting channel, and I never ran that. I never ran ads as first channel on Facebook ever for myself. I only ran retargeting ads, and so my strategy was to do search text ads around my ideal customers' search queries. And that took some time to figure out, and some spend. But with machine learning and my own learning and refining, I pulled traffic to my site. And if they didn't book a session there, I would have them hit with an ad on Facebook or another display ad on Google, depending on which funnel they were in. But it was extremely effective. And Facebook as a remarketing ad spend was so cheap because you were showing your ad very specifically to people who are already engaged with you through a search query. So they were seeing relevant content. That was a second touch, or maybe even a third. Those days are gone. I don't want to say that they're gone completely, and that we still use those same tactics and techniques, but you don't collect the hit that this specific person visited your page anymore. It used to be around a third of the traffic you were not seeing. I think it's over 40% now that you're not collecting tracking data on. So as that number grows and more of that tracking is blocked, your ad spend goes up to compensate for that, because you're reaching less engaged customers.
No, I would agree. Now we're kind of tossing around between Facebook and Google. And I know from my experience running ads, LinkedIn is the only platform that will allow you to target job profession out there. But the other thing worth mentioning is LinkedIn ads can be really expensive cost per click, or CPA, or cost per acquisition. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn ads? Do you have any experience? Do you think they're worth it, not worth it, and so on?
From a platform, I certainly think that the advertising can work on LinkedIn. Um, the I think it was more effective, a little while ago. I think as people are adopting alternative platforms to Facebook and Twitter, that you see some dilution of those ad dollars, but um, you know that target CPA. Um, I don't think it's high. If you were running, um, depending on your market, if you were running lead acquisition through Google Ads, I think your spend could be just as high in comparison. So I like the platform. What I don't like about it from an organic standpoint is every time I post anything, touch anything, I'm constantly spammed with DMs from marketers
Mhm.
asking me how they can help me grow my business. But from a paid standpoint, I think it can be effective. But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It is expensive, but you're
And I,
starting. Yeah, and why I mentioned depending on your market. If
mhm.
you are primarily business to business rather than business to consumer, it's well worth it because that's your market right there. Compared to Facebook, you have a lot of consumers versus business colleagues on that platform.
Yeah, there's no kidding. The comment about the spam. As the co-admin of a huge LinkedIn WordPress group, I can tell you there doesn't go a week go by that myself and Courtney Robertson will pull multiple posts out of spammy. So that's the knock. But to give Microsoft a little credit, I think they're working on ways to get around that. So I think that's going to change. Now, while we're talking about ads, it's worth mentioning YouTube as a large ad platform, but that goes into Google. But where I wanted to go was, what do you think of things like Yelp ads for service industries and the value of those? And do you think they provide a bit of a value potentially to an advertiser?
I I mean, it depends on the type of business. I have a Yelp listing, and I've actually gotten several good leads from there. Um, do I think it works for everyone? Uh, Probably not, but I think other ad platforms and other areas besides the big two or three, if you want to look at YouTube as the third,
Mhm.
you start looking at other platforms to get creative and look to find leads besides Facebook and Google. When I talk about the big two, um, the we used to call that the perfect union of advertising data, which without the tracking is gone.
Yeah.
So other platforms like Yelp are helpful. Just having a listing there is good for. I mean, that's just good for your SEO. And so that's another piece that I look at SEO as another marketing channel, and aside from paid, but using the other platforms out there to advertise, I think it's a great idea. But it also depends on what your business is and where your target audience is. Um,
Yeah. Where do you think paid advertising is going to go with all this blocking of privacy and people blocking retargeting cookies and things like that? Do you think retargeting is effectively dead, or do you think it's going to kind of morph into another way of tracking?
Well, you're seeing companies like Google and Facebook adopt other ways to group you into a group of cohorts. So Facebook has the conversions API, which I set up on every e-commerce site, that customer A purchased this product or viewed these products. And so, these other 5 people are like them
Yep.
in these ways when they're on our platform. So we'll show the ad to them. So there's still some effectiveness there, but specific retargeting, like we used to have a few years ago, I think that's gone. I think more people are getting privacy astute, and I mean, even to seeing people deleting their Google Workspace accounts and using other alternatives that aren't as useful, in my opinion. So, you know, as we continue to go down that road, I think content marketing and SEO becomes more important.
Yeah, but then people need to realize if we're doing content marketing and SEO, yes, they're important, but that's also a marathon game, not a sprint. And it used to be the highest weight ROI was PPC or paid advertising, pay per click. But I think that's starting to shift too. And I think people need to kind of figure out their expectations and kind of get them in check with what the landscape is doing.
Right. And that really comes down to building a good customer persona and finding out where they hang out and maximizing your ad dollars on those platforms. So the majority of my clients are around my age, mid 40s. So, I still spend money on Facebook because established business owners have come to see me as not just a young hotshot digital marketer, but an agency that they can partner with. So it that demographic is still there, so it works for my business in particular. Now, if I had another product or a consumer driven product that was aimed at the under 24 market, I would probably look at doing advertising on TikTok. Or
Mhm.
if I'm going to stay on the Meta platform, maximizing the dollars on there with Instagram, and particularly in story or reels. They don't convert as well, but you're going to touch your target audience.
That is so true, and I think you got to kind of look at ads as there's no one size fits all anymore. It depends on what you're trying to target, where you're trying to target, and demographics mean everything. And I think a lot of people are still, frankly, when they're producing ads, they take what call the throw it at the dartboard blindfolded method, and they have no clue on what works, what doesn't work, and what they're targeting. They just throw their ads out there, and then they wonder why they don't convert.
Right. And looking at analytical data and doing testing on those platforms after you produce a few ads, I think is the wrong approach.
Yep.
I think companies need to spend more time on their customer persona and, who is purchasing their products,
Mhm.
and then finding out where that demographic hangs out online, and then start your testing there before you spend any ad dollars, because we can't collect the data that we used to by internet navigational behavior. So the offline thinking needs to happen. It already should have been happening in that sense before, but I don't think some of the amateur or DIYers really looked at it that way.
No, it's true. And you have to be aware of the rules around ads. And you and I both know, and having had political clients, we both know the political, and we've talked about this in past, the political landscape is a minefield when it comes to running ads. If you're trying to sell cannabis products, if you're trying to sell guns in the US, if you're trying to sell any adult type products, there's a multitude of issues.
Yeah, and I put this in note in my newsletter because, as you mentioned, we both have political clients that not only political clients, but the targeting around issues has gone away, and that's no longer an option. On the meta platforms. One of my strong niches that I still service a lot are nonprofits. So that really hurts when we want to do giving campaigns. If we're doing any paid events, that issues based targeting really kind of cuts off some of the humanitarian organizations out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know in the last federal election in Canada, I had a client who did not apply for their ad account early. They weren't planning to run any ads and then decided a week in the campaign. And they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Honestly, you will not get approval in the time you need it to run ads. I wouldn't even bother, but I would chalk it up as a lesson for the next time because these things all take approvals now. They all take reasons for doing things. And because of all the issues caused all over the place, the platforms are cracking down because they're trying to stay out of the eyesight of the lawmakers. And that's a problem too.
Google's from the certifying with Google's ad platform for political advertising. They've changed a few things to make it easier and clearer on how to register, and those were recent changes that they shared in some of their newsletters. So I was happy to see that it's not necessarily a more lenient process, but approval is faster and it's actually clearer on what you need to do in order to be approved.
Yeah, at least they've made it easy. As for the Facebook monster, they seem to hide everything, and then when people don't get approved, they kind of look and say, "Why?" And they haven't made it really clear anymore what's allowed, what's not allowed. So I give another example. I've had a couple clients in the healthcare sector, and on health stuff, you're not allowed to make a guarantee. You can't say 60% of all people, even if you have statistics to back it up, this will happen. You're not allowed to say that. And it's really tough to market when you can't make guarantees. Now, I want to move on to one last thing. Personally, when I run ads, I like to send my clients to a landing page, or their viewers for my clients to a landing page, I should say. And I prefer that landing page not to have a lot on it. And one of the things I think people make the mistake of, they make their landing pages too pretty. They put navigation on, they put footers on, they put headers on. I personally prefer to strip all that out because I want people to concentrate on the landing page. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I see people that DIY all the time that make a page on their website that they're running paid traffic to, that has the header, the footer, uh, extra navigation. You don't want any of that. They came very specifically to that page, and you want them to take a very specific action, whether it's to sign up for an email newsletter, buy a product, or uh, give a donation. They hit that page to do that. You don't give them any other options to do anything else but that. And that's it.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, the one exception I would make is if the product was a high value product, you might want to put some branding on it because the branding will bring credibility. But I still wouldn't put the navigation in personally.
Oh, sure. That's the number one issue that I see with a lot of people that even other marketers, I still see them putting their header and footer on landing pages, and it's a rookie mistake. It happens. It's an easy one to avoid, but yeah, giving people too many choices when they come to a page for a specific purpose really hurts your conversion rate immensely. And So yeah, a clear call to action, since we're talking about landing pages, a clear description of why they need to do it, and then another follow-up call to action at the end of the page, if you have a longer landing page. That's really the best recipe or anatomy of a page for success.
Yeah, so true. And the other thing is to think about not just the ad copy, but if you're doing like Facebook ads or ads on other sites, really think about the images that you're using. And by the way, folks, don't just go on the internet and grab images. There are companies that run around looking for people using images they shouldn't be using. And get yourself a good stock photo library where you can pull the images off, or better still, use your own.
Right. I think the number one upgrade I see for small businesses is spend the time to hire a professional photographer.
Yeah.
Because stock photography, a lot of it out there, that, even the paid subscription services, they have an editorial use only license. So unless you're paying the high dollar subscription, or very specifically buying a license to use this in commercial applications, you can find yourself in some hot water. It doesn't always happen. You might get away with it once or twice, but eventually you'll probably get a cease and desist letter, and uh, you have to go through and redo your landing page or all of your ads
Yeah.
and basically start over.
Or in the case of a company like Getty Images, they are notorious for going after companies and taking them to court. I've seen it happen way too many times in my career. And people just say, I didn't know. And they don't realize that if they had done things the right way in the first place, they wouldn't have this problem, to be honest. So,
Yeah, it when we talk about clients that want to grow their business, and we're talking about landing pages here, where we've talked a little bit about content. The last things that I see small businesses spending money on, well, for one, are marketing. But once we get to that point, it's quality content that's written specific for their business and for their sales purpose, and then good images showcasing their products or services that are original. If clients did those two things, they would see a huge increase in trust and conversion.
yeah, so true. Ryan, thanks for jumping on and talking about ads today. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how's the best way?
You can find me on every major social media platform at One Dog Solutions. You can email me at ryan.waterbury at One Dog Solutions. Or you can visit my website, onedog.solutions.
And make sure you say hi to Ryan's office manager and assistant, Bud and Shooter. They will be glad to say hi to you. Have a great day, Ryan. Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye-bye.
A very special thank you to Ryan Waterbury for joining me on this edition of the SDM show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation about pay-per-click, online ads, and that was helpful for you and your agency.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.